attending online? Guys, please check it. All of you get my voice on screen. Oh, sorry. Guys, all of you there? Please confirm to me. All of you get my voice on screen. Guys, please confirm to me. All of you get my voice on screen. Okay. 1 minute, guys. Then I will confirm it whether this material is uploaded or not in the drive. Already given intimation to our admin people to upload the material. Just give me a minute of time. Guys, and meanwhile, now try to check. Anyway, then I'll confirm it by the end of the class. I'll talk with my admin people. If they have not uploaded, then today they will upload there. Don't worry. Ritesh. And then Hibernate material will be uploaded today, max. Don't worry. Already it was there. Right. I'll give you intimation there, but let me check once. Don't worry. And guys, then what we completed there in the Hibernate classes up to now? What we completed there in Hibernate classes up to now? I think so. We are discussing about like what there steps to prepare Hibernate application. In the steps to prepare Hibernate application, almost all what we completed there. We completed how to then prepare mapping file. We completed persistence class. We completed and configuration file is completed. And finally, now we are coming to what there client application. Finally, we are at what there client application. Guys, now tell me what is the purpose of this client application here? What is the main intention of client application, guys? Now tell me. The main intention of client application is number one. What's the main intention, guys? Now try to observe this clearly. Let's understand it. What's the main intention here? Activate Hibernate software. Activate Hibernate software. And the second one, after activating Hibernate software, the second one is like what there? Create persistence object. Create persistence object. After creating persistence object, then what next one can we have to do there? Guys, look careful. The next one is after creating persistence object, next one perform persistence operation. This is overall the points here what we are having here about like what there this total content. Right? Understand this now? What we have to do there? Okay. 1 minute, guys. I think something is going to be happen. And what happened here? Just give a minute of time, then I'll. The application is like what there? Activate Hibernate software and create persistence object and perform persistence operations. That's what we are getting clearly. This is the meaning of like what there preparing like what now Hibernate applications. That's okay, fine. Next one is what are the various steps here we have to do to do all these things now to perform all these perform or to create client application. We have to use the following steps. What are the various steps here we have to use there? Now you understand this clearly. Step number one. All right. So the very first step here I'm telling to you clearly. The step is first of all create configuration object. This is step number one. Create what the configuration object. Create session factory object. Create what the session factory object. Create session object. Create what the session object. Next one is after that create transaction object for performing non-select queries execution. non-selection SQL. That means non-select operations. Next one is like what they perform persistence operations. After completion of this performing persistence operations here, then what next one here? Commit in the case of non-select operations. Okay, then if it is select operation not equal to commit, then after that close a session and the session factory. These are the various points guys here we have to understand clearly. Okay, now let's observe carefully what exactly the steps we required to prepare this client application. First one is like what I'm telling to you. Right, sir. Create configuration object, create session factory object, create session object, create transaction object for performing non-select operations, perform persistence operations, commit in the case of non-select operations, and close session and session factory. These are overall the points here what we are having while preparing this client application. Guys, all of you are getting these points here? What I'm telling you? Try to observe this clearly. Next one is after that, after completion of this particular point here. Now here we have to understand the first one, very first one is what there. Configuration object here we have to understand. Configuration object. What exactly its purpose is? What is this configuration object here? What is the meaning of this configuration object? The main intention of configuration object is to is to manage all the Hibernate configuration details. All the Hibernate configuration details which we provided in a configuration file, in Hibernate configuration file. That's it, to accommodate or to encapsulate or to store all the Hibernate configuration details which are provided inside the configuration file in a Hibernate application. For that particular reason only, here we are providing like what their configuration object. This is what exactly the requirement of like what the configuration object. Right. So then how this configuration object is provided here? How the configuration object is existed here? Any idea? How we are able to provide this configuration object? If we up to this particular point, answer is very clear. To represent configuration object, Hibernate has provided. To provide Hibernate configuration details, Hibernate has provided a predefined interface in the form of like what there arg.hibernate dot cfg. Understand my point, guys? Then cfg dot configuration. It's not predefined interface, guys. Then this is a class only. It's not predefined interface. No, it's like what their class. Right, so it's a class. But how we are able to create object for this particular one? How it is possible to create object for this particular one? To create object for configuration class, to create object for configuration class, we have to use the following instructions. So many instructions are available. Of course, constructors are available. Instead of saying that instructions, no, I can say like what they constructors. To create an object for configuration class, we have to use so many constructors. What are the various constructors are available here? Following constructors. Example, I'm telling you. Following constructors. Right, so observe this clearly. The first one is like what I'm telling you. Public configuration. That's just zero argument constructor. Okay, we can understand. Public configuration. That's it. Okay. Right. So then what's the purpose of this one? What we are able to do with this, observe carefully. Example I'm telling you. Example is configuration CFG is equal to new configuration. Configuration CFG is equal to new configuration. That's it. But what is the internal point here? The point is like what I'm telling you with this. It's able to create an empty configuration object. It's able to create an empty configuration object in heap memory. It's able to create what is an empty configuration object in heap memory. Understand, guys? What I'm telling you. It should not include. It doesn't have. That means it doesn't have, or it is not having any configuration details. Any configuration details as of now. Alright. Then what next one here after completion of this? Then what next one here after that? Now the next one is what there to provide configuration details. To provide configuration details and configuration object. We have to use the following methods. We have to use the following methods. What methods can we are able to use there? The methods would be like what the public configuration configure method. This method is like what the configuration. Then what next one? Configure method. This is one method, guys. Observe carefully. Public configuration and configure method. Okay, this is one method. Now, what is the purpose of this configure method? What it able to do actually? Right. Then what it able to do there? It will capture all configuration details. It will get all configuration details from hibernate.cfg.xml file. It will get all configuration details from what there from hibernate.cfg.xml file. This is the point here we can understand there. Next one, another point here. Another method is what about this method here? For example, my configuration details are not available in hibernate.cfg.xml. I provided my own configuration file. I provided what there my own configuration file. A separate file, my config.xml is available. Inside this my config.xml only, all the configuration files are provided. That's my point, Okay, so if you want to get configuration details from your own file, not another one, from your own file, if you want to get configuration details, there we have to go for like what there's some other public configuration configure stringer config file name. config file name. Okay, right. So now here I can give some examples also. Then by that we are able to get it. Understand this clearly. Configuration, that means CFG. First we have to create config object. Then after CFG dot configure. That's okay. Similarly, what I'm telling there, what it is providing there. Example I'm telling there. Do one thing. Example I'll provide this after the code. Right. Then here, what the meaning of it? No, it is able to get all the configuration details. It is able to get all the configuration details from the specified configuration file. Able to get all the configuration details from the configuration file. Whatever the configuration file can be specified from that, it able to generate. Now cfg dot configure of here. What we have to specify there? Now I will specify my config.xml. The name and location of the configuration file is not fixed, so that we can prepare your own configuration file also. From that, inside this configuration file, if you are getting the data, if you provide the data, the total data will come to the configuration object. This is another point here we can understand now. Next one is what? Then after that, next one, another one. Now this time, my configuration details are available in a particular file object. All my configuration details are available in a particular file object. So again, what I have to do there? Public configuration, public configuration, then get configure of here, what we are able to provide there. Now this time, file, a particular file object. Then what is doing? Then it able to get all configuration details from the specified file object. The file object is representing a particular file. Example I'm telling you. Now again, cfg.configure of new file where my file is available at a particular location, d:/abc/xyz/ my config.xml, something else. File is available in a particular location. So that all the details are available inside, like what they know, a particular file. That file we are getting in the form of file object. That file object difference we pass as parameter to configure method. So automatically we are able to get what their configuration details from a particular file object. Right, sir? Then another method is also existed here. Now try to understand it. Public configuration configure. Now here we have to provide like what their URL. URL. It is able to get all configuration details which are available at a particular location in the network. At a particular location, what their network. It's able to get all configuration details which are available at a particular location in the network. Now I'm telling you example here. cfg.configure of new URL of like something else we have to specify like http://s or localhost localhost some port number 8082/app and /config somewhere else. That is available in somewhere else. In the network, they're available in the network in somewhere else. So the details we are able to get. So in these three ways, we are able to get like what the configuration. But out of all these, what we are able to use maximum, first A and B, only these two we are able to use. Either 0.config method or maybe our user defined configuration file we are able to provide. With that, we are able to prepare what the config object with our user defined data. Only either of these only we are going to use, but remaining things are namesake only we are getting there, not required to use remaining things. Just example point of view, I'm telling you clearly. Right, now observe carefully what I'm telling you regarding this. Okay. Yes, sir. I'll have to get my point or not. I have some few points about this one here. What exactly the internal process of this particular section? Example could I given already. What is going to be happen internally? Observe carefully. When we execute the above instructions, Hibernate software, what Hibernate software will do there? Hibernate software will perform the following actions. What are the various actions that Hibernate software is performing there? Right, sir. Hibernate software will get name and location of the configuration file. Okay, configuration file. Number two, what Hibernate software will do there? Hibernate software will search hibernate.cfg.xml by default. Okay, if you provide any of our own configuration file, then Hibernate software will search our provided configuration file. Understand what I'm telling you? If you provide your own configuration file, that will be checked. If you are not providing our own configuration file, by default Hibernate software will search for what there hibernate.cfg.xml file. Okay, fine. When a Hibernate software identifies configuration file, then Hibernate software will perform will perform loading configuration file, loading configuration XML file, parsing configuration XML file, reading data from configuration XML file, then storing configuration details in configuration object. That's it. These are the various steps which are taken by Hibernate software. Finally, the data of the configuration file will come to the Hive configuration object. This is one point here you can understand. As all of you get my point or not, what is the meaning of this configuration object here? That I given information that the main intention of the configuration object is to manage all the Hibernate configuration details which you provide in Hibernate configuration file. To represent configuration object, Hibernate has provided a predefined class in the form of arg.hibernate.cfg configuration. To create an object for configuration class, we have to use some constructors. What are the various constructors are available here? Public configuration geoargument constructor. So configuration CFG is good new configuration. Then with this, what we are able to get there? Just simply we are able to get a configuration object in heap memory. It does not have any configuration details now. But if we want to provide configuration details inside the configuration object, there we have to use some methods explicitly. What methods can we have to use there? First of all, configure zero argument parameter. That method we have to use. Then it will search by default hibernate.cfg.xml file. Whatever the configuration details are available inside this hibernate.cfg.xml file, and Hibernate software will get that configuration details into the configuration object. Cfg.configure. That's okay, nice. Next one is public configuration configure. String a config file name. It able to get all the configuration details from the specified configuration file. So then if you provide configuration details in our own file, then it able to get configuration data to like what they know to the configuration object. That's okay, fine. Then what next one? After that, after completion of this particular one, what next one can we have to do there? Okay. Next one is like what they're after that. If the configuration details are available at a particular file object, that file might be representing a file which is available at a different location or hard disk. If it's available there, then directly we can create what their file object, then pass that file object reference as parameter to configure method. That's okay, fine. Next one is what next one can after completion of this case? Public configuration configure URL. It's able to get all configuration details which are available at a particular location in the network. Config.configure of new URL of that means if that configuration details are available at a particular location in the network, to get all these details here we have to use like what all the configuration details. That means we have to use like what directly URL, new URL object we have to create with the URL, then that we have to pass as parameter to configure method. Right. So when we execute above sections, Hibernate software will perform some actions. What actions the Hibernate software is able to perform there? Next one is first one is Hibernate software will get name and location of the configuration file. Hibernate software will search Hibernate.cfg.xml by default. If you provide any of your own configuration, then Hibernate right. So then Hibernate software will search Hibernate.cfg.xml file by default. If no configuration file is provided. Okay. If you provide any of our own configuration file, then Hibernate software will search our provided configuration file. When Hibernate software identifies the configuration file, then Hibernate software will perform the following actions. What actions this Hibernate software is able to perform there? Loading configuration XML file, passing configuration XML file, reading data from configuration XML file, storing configuration details in the configuration object. So these are overall the internal process and what we are having about these configuration details. Right, so that we created clearly. Next guys, I'm asking one more question here. Now try to answer for it clearly. All of you observe carefully. Here I have a question now. Here my question is what there inside this. How many configuration objects can we are able to create? In general, in Hibernate applications. In general, in Hibernate applications. In general, Hibernate applications. In Hibernate applications. In general, in Hibernate applications, we are able to create configuration file, configuration object with respect to the configuration file. With respect to what the configuration file. Okay. Next one. In Hibernate configuration, in Hibernate applications, if we use more than one database, then we have to prepare more than one configuration file. More than one configuration. If you prepare then more than one configuration file, we have to prepare. Okay. Next one. After that, Hibernate applications, if we use more than one database, then we have to prepare more than one configuration file. Nice. Then, if we prepare more than one configuration file, then we have to create more than one configuration object. For each and every database, a separate configuration object, a single configuration object will be created. Observe carefully, guys. Yes, all of you get my point clearly. What I'm telling you. Right. For each and every database, a separate configuration file we are creating. For each and every configuration file, a separate configuration object will be created. Now, understand clearly. I'm giving one conclusion. Try to understand it. In Hibernate applications, configuration object is a thread safe up to configuration object is a thread safe up to single database. If we use more than one database, then it is not like what they know. then it is not thread safe. Up to one database, it is what the thread safe. That means only one thread. Even if we allow any number of threads, that doesn't matter. Up to one database, no. But if you use more than one database, no, then automatically more than one configuration object will be created. Then we cannot say it's like what they're thread safe. So configuration object thread safe up to single object, up to single database. All right. So now this is exactly the meaning of like what there configuration. The meaning of this configuration object. How we are able to prepare that. What is going to be happen? Everything we are getting. Finally, up to now, what we are getting there. Configuration object will be created with all the configuration details of the Hibernate configuration file. This is what we understood. Now let's understand this next one here. After this, another thing is what there session factory object. Session factory object. Configuration object here we understood. Now we have to understand like what there session factory object. What exactly the meaning of session factory? What is the purpose of the session factory? Right. The main intention of session factory object is to provide or is to create the resources like database connection, comma, statement or prepared statement, and so on in Hibernate applications. Hibernate applications and so on by getting configuration details from configuration object. Right, yes. The main intention of session factory is to create the resources like database connection, statement or prepared statement and so on by getting configuration details from configuration object in Hibernate applications. Right. Next one is then after that. This is the purpose of this configuration object. Sorry, session factory. Inside the session factory, what it able to do there? It able to prepare. It able to create connection, connecting with the database. And next one is like what the after connection here. It able to prepare like what there. Configuration of that means it able to provide a statement objects, prepare statement objects, which objects are required to perform database operations. All these details are going to be provided. This is the purpose of like what the session factory object. That's nice. Then how we are able to prepare session factory object? No, how is possible? They know. Observe carefully. To create a session factory object, we will use the following method. Method from configuration. What is method here? We have to use there. Observe carefully. Public session factory. Build a session factory. Guys, observe carefully. Then what is the method here we are able to use there? Session factory. Okay, public session factory. Build a session factory. This is the method here we are able to use. Now, example here I'm telling to you. Session factory SF is equal to name I'm using it simply SF. No. Next one is CFG. CFG is what the configuration dot build session factory. Right, yes. Now this is what I'm telling you that this approach is valid up to Hibernate 3.x version. Okay, in Hibernate 3.x version only this approach is valid here, but in 4.x version onwards, build a session factory method was deprecated. There's some other approach we are going to use. Yes, I got my point. Some other approach here we are able to use there. Then that node also I want to provide. That's the point I'm telling to you. Right, so the above approach. That means the above approach is valid up to Hibernate 3.x version. Okay, from Hibernate 4.x version onwards, from Hibernate 4.x version onwards, build a session factory method was deprecated. Then we are having some other alternative without using build a session factory. There is another method here that we are able to use. Okay, right. So what we are able to use there in the future, I will discuss with you. What we are able to use inside, like what there. Right. So what we are able to use inside this Hibernate 4.x version, I'll give the information. Then after that, I'll give information about what there Hibernate 5.x version also. What exactly the changes are available that we are going to understand there in future versions of this Hibernate. Okay, this is what I'm telling you. Then what about the next one here? Session factory is what? Is it a thread safe or not? And before that, how many session factory objects here we have to create? Right. So now tell me. For example, I'm asking there if I use multiple databases in a Hibernate application. If we use multiple databases in Hibernate, applications, then we have to create multiple configuration files. Okay. With this, we have to create multiple configuration objects. Again, I'm telling you, with this, we have to create multiple session factory objects. With this, we have to use what are multiple session factory objects. Now, I'm telling you, session factory object is thread safe up to single database. Session factory object is what the thread safe up to single database. If you use multiple databases, no, it is not thread safe here. Right. This is one point here we have to understand clearly. Next one, after completion of this, then what next one here? Session factory. How to create the session factory object also we are getting it. Right. The session factory SF is equal to CFG dot build session factory. That we understood it clearly. Then after that, after completion of this, what next one here we have to do there? Next, we have to create session object. Session object. Right. So what is the purpose of this session object? You know, what's the purpose of this session object actually? Right. So then after creating configuration object and after creating session factory object, then we have to perform database operations. To perform database operations, we need some predefined library or not? To perform database operations, what we require here, we need some predefined library. That predefined library are provided. That predefined library is provided inside what they know session object. So we require the session object. That's my point here. In Hibernate applications, the main intention of session object is to provide is to provide persistence methods in order to perform persistence operations. In order to perform persistence operations, persistence methods are provided here in order to perform persistence operations. What methods are provided here? What are the various methods are provided here? But before that, how we are able to represent the session object and how we are able to get the session object? Okay, understand one more point here. Here to represent a session factory, Hibernate has provided a predefined interface in the form of arg.hibernate dot directly session factory, not in CFG, not in the config, directly is available. Okay, similarly, how we are able to represent the session object here? To represent session object, Hibernate has provided a predefined interface in the form of arg.hibernate.session. Arg.hibernate.session. Right. After creating the session object here, okay, then this is the representation of the session. But how we are able to create that session? How it is possible to get a session object? Right. The next one is to create session object. We have to use the following method from session factory. All are linked guys. All these things are like what they're linked objects, linked concepts only. What exactly the method here we are able to use here? Public, understand guys, public session open session method. Right, so public open session method. Everybody understand this point clearly. Public open session method we are using it. Okay, now example if we have to this session is equal to sf dot open session. Now understand it clearly. Session is lightweight and it is not thread safe in Hibernate applications. Session is lightweight and it is not thread safe in Hibernate applications. Why? Because multiple threads are coming there to perform a particular operation. Multiple threads has to be allowed here. Okay, but it's not thread safe. But configuration and session factory are thread safe. Only one object is created, even though multiple things are available. But multiple threads are coming there, multiple session objects will be created. Multiple threads are coming to execute or persist operations, multiple session objects are going to be created. So it's not thread safe. Okay. Right. So then after that, here what next one here we are able to provide no. Now what next object we have to create guys? Now tell me. The next object would be like what the transaction. In the case if you are performing any non-select operation there, where transaction object is required. So next one is like what I'm telling you, transaction object. Transaction object. What's the purpose of this transaction object here? You know already in Hibernate applications, if we perform non-select operations, in Hibernate applications, if we perform non-select operations, then we have to prepare transaction object. If we perform select operations, then it is not required. Create transaction object. That's what it is. In Hibernate applications, if we perform non-select operations, then we have to create a transaction object. If we perform select operations, then it is not required to create a transaction object. So whenever we want to perform select operations, don't require transaction. But whenever we want to perform non-select operations like inserting the data, updating data, and all, if we are performing there, where what we require, they directly require what the transaction object. Right. So then how we are able to get this transaction object? How we are able to represent it first of all? Okay. Now understand it clearly. To represent transaction, Hibernate applications. Hibernate has provided an interface in the form of I think so. It may be a class or interface here. Right. Okay. Right. Interface only. I think so. Interface. Then let me check it anyway. Arg dot Hibernate dot transaction. Right. There are two ways to get transaction object in Hibernate. There are two ways to get a transaction object in Hibernate applications. What are the two ways here? First one is by using two methods. Simply speaking, two methods here we are able to use. First one is like what there public transaction begin transaction. Public transaction begin transaction. This is one method here we have to use. Okay, and second method is like what there public transaction get a transaction. Public what begin transaction and public transaction get a transaction. Two methods are available here. Okay, what is the difference between begin transaction and get a transaction here? If you have this clearly, begin transaction method begin transaction method will create a transaction object and it will start transaction. But whereas get a transaction method will create transaction object, but it will not start a transaction by default. Where we have to use the following methods, the following method to start a transaction. Right. Now observe carefully. Right. That method we have to use like what there. Get a transaction method. If you use the get a transaction method, then we have to use a separate method, public void begin. We need to call this, then only we are able to get it. Example code here I'm telling you, now observe carefully. First one is like what I'm telling you. Transaction tx is equal to session dot begin transaction. That's okay now. This is one thing. But another thing is like what there. Transaction tx is equal to session dot get a transaction. So here we are able to get only transaction object. Then after that, what we have to do there, tx dot begin. That we have to, then only we are able to get it. Right, sir. Then after that, whatever it may be, whether we are beginning the transaction automatically or we explicitly we are beginning the transaction, that's okay. That's a different story. But what we have to do there, note kind of what I'm telling there. After performing all the database operations with the session, after performing all the database operations with the session, we have to perform either commit or rollback operations. For this, we have to use the following methods. For this, here we have to use like what are the following methods. Public void commit, public void rollback. Right, these two methods can be provided. Right, so there is 6 step or 7 step might be I covered here itself, not required to go for it. Next one, after completion of this, then what next one here? Perform database operations. Perform persistence operations. Right, we have to perform like what are the persistence operations can. Okay. What are the various persistence operations we are able to perform there? To perform persistence operations, we have to use the following methods. What methods can we are able to use there? Number one, to insert or save an object in a database, we will use a set of methods. What methods can we have to use there? Save method, persist method. To insert an object in database, here we have to use the save method or persist method. I'll discuss about them. Interview questions I'll discuss with you. Don't worry for it. To update records in a database, what methods can we have to use there? What are the various methods can we are able to use there? Alright, so then update method is available. Another one is like what there, save or update method. This is another one. Right. Then what next one? After completion of this updation operations, then we can go for like what there to read or retrieve. To read or retrieve a record from database, we have to use some other methods. What methods can we be able to use there? Okay. What methods can we be able to use there? Get method. The other one is like what there? Load method. Right. So get method or load method. For what purpose can we are using there? No. For what purpose can we be able to use there? No. Just to read the data from database. To read the data from database. To read the record from database. Here we are able to use these methods. Right. Sir? Yeah, definitely. Some differences are available. So far I have not covered any interview questions there. Then definitely I'll cover interview questions now. So that I'm able to explain all these points. Here almost 2 to 3 interview questions are available. What are these 2 to 3 interview questions here? Then I'll explain to you. Don't worry for it. Okay. Alright, yes. Now these are about like what there. All the methods, persistence operations we are able to perform persistence operations. These are the various methods we are able to use to perform all persistence operations. Okay, interview questions I will cover, yes. Then one by one, all interview questions I will cover there. Whenever we are taking Hibernate application, there we cover interview questions. And finally, that all the last step is like what there, close the resources. Close the resources. What's the meaning of this closing the resources here? Observe carefully. In Hibernate applications, it is a I think so. For delete operations, I have not given any answers, correct? To delete records from database. Here we are able to use like what there? Delete method. Definitely here we are having what method? Delete method. Definitely. Why? Because then we have to use like what method? Delete. Why? Because to delete records from the database. Yes. Right. In Hibernate applications, it is convention to close all the resources after performing database operations or persistence operations. So for the purpose, then what we have to do there, session dot close, session factory dot close, that we have to use. That's the case. Now the other steps here we have to understand. Now some interview questions are available inside these methods now. First of all, let me prepare one Hibernate application first. After that, I will show all the methods one by one, all the methods one by one. I'm able to show one example for inserting records, another example for updating records, another example for what the reading the data, another example is for what the deleting records. All this I'm going to use. But meanwhile, here we have to prepare first application. Very simple application we have to prepare. There I'm able to show all the points, all interview questions I'm able to show there clearly. Guys, that's fine. Now the remaining part I will discuss with you tomorrow. Tomorrow I will start application development directly.